here we are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and today on our show we have Barbara Vitalis. Barbara is the clinical supervisor at Habit OPCO, which is our methadone clinic here in Brattleboro. She works with patients to provide support through a wide range of counseling services. She's going to talk today about opioid use in our town and also the things that are doing to support people. So welcome, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. I'm very glad to have you on because I think there's so many myths and misconceptions about the methadone clinic. People know that there's a clinic here in town, but they don't really know what it is or what's going on.
Correct.
And I know you're going to fill us in on a lot. And before we start, I think we'll just get a little background. So you grew up in Greenfield.
I grew up in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Yes, I did. I was the youngest of 6 kids.
Wow.
I migrated towards Johnson, Vermont, lived up there for 3 years, and then moved to Brattleboro 19 years ago.
19 years ago. So you've been here almost 20 years.
Yes, I have.
Lots changed in 20 years. When you were in college, you were studying psychology, so from an early age, you were interested in human behavior?
I have always been interested in human behavior. I think being the youngest of 6 children, I always studied my older siblings' behavior and what not to do and what to do and how to get away with certain things. When I was a kid in the 70s and I used to watch the Newhart show, Bob Newhart I played a psychologist, and I said, someday I want to do that.
That is so cool. It's not that you wanted to have a TV show.
Right, no, I didn't want to have a TV show. I wanted to be able to sit down and talk with people and help them through their issues.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
So that stuck, and then you got your master's at Union Institute here in Brattleboro.
Yep.
Another great foundational educational thing that we have in town.
Yes.
And so you actually had a personal goal really early.
Yes.
And after you got out of school, what kind of jobs were you doing?
When I first graduated with my bachelor's degree, I worked at Brattleboro Union High School for 4 years. I worked with kids who had learning differences in the Title I room. And then after that, I went on to the Brattleboro Retreat, where I did a variety of different jobs, mental health worker, psychology testing technician, and it was while I was doing the psychology testing that I decided that I wanted to go back for my master's degree because I really wanted to be a mental health counselor. I saw that there was really a need for people to work with folks with different mental health or substance use disorders.
Right, and so you were seeing a lot of substance abuse back then?
Yes. Oh yes, yeah. And that's actually when I first really heard about Suboxone. And that's when or a lot of the folks would come in and they would be on methadone. I really didn't know that much about it. I knew a little bit about it because I had a brother that was on methadone in Greenfield. But I really wasn't really sure how it worked or anything like that.
For you to go to Habit OPCO, which I'm not sure when they got established here, do you know?
I believe it was in 2006.
2006,
yes.
And when did you join them?
I joined them in 2012. We did some in-services with the Turning Point and I found out a little bit more about medically assisted treatment and methadone and Suboxone, and I did a lot of research on my own. My supervisor helped me with things, and I don't know, I find it fascinating. I really developed a real understanding of medically assisted treatment and a real understanding of people with substance use disorders and what they've been through in their life.
There's so many things that all of us don't understand about substance abuse and about addiction and about all that. And luckily there's so much going on right now in terms of just the science of it. So if you could describe your job at Habit OPCO, what you do, what your day looks like.
Okay. So at Brattleboro Habit OPCO, I'm the clinical supervisor. I'm both licensed as a licensed alcohol and drug counselor and a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I supervise a staff of 5 people. We're looking for a 6th. But what I have a caseload of 40 folks that I see throughout the month. I might see them individually or in a group. I help them, I do a lot of cognitive therapy with them, a lot of motivational interviewing, solution-focused stuff. We do group counseling for folks with substance use disorders is really a proven way of helping people along, because they also see they have to get along with other people in the world. Everybody has to, well, they don't have to, but we should all get along with each other.
It's a really good goal.
Right, it is a good goal. And then they find things that they have in common with each other, and they can relate to each other's struggle, and they can know that they're not alone.
Right.
Because substance use disorders can be very isolating.
Yes.
And so it's really good for people to know that they're not alone in this world.
Yes. Well, I think that that would be a huge thing. And I think something that's probably even as huge as that is getting them there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, you know, when people come in, they make the phone call, they make the first phone call. I also do intakes, the other clinicians do intakes, and that's really soup to nuts. They come in, it's a 3-hour process.
Wow.
So they really need to be, we tell people they're making a really brave choice when they walk in our doors, because they have to see the counselor for an hour. And we ask them so many questions, from early childhood to present. And then they have to go and they have to meet with a nurse. And the nurse asks them a lot of the same questions that we've already asked them. There's an administrative piece where they have to get the insurance information and demographics and everything. And we also have to, you know, and then our care coordinator gives them the services that we offer, and do you need a referral to housing? Do you need a referral to a doctor? What do you need? Do you need transportation to get to and from the clinic?
Right. That's right.
So, you know, there's that full range, and then they have to come back the next day to meet with the doctor, and that's another hour. So these folks that come in, we have 280 patients right now. I believe that's our census. And when they come in, they really want that for the most part. They really, I would have to say, the majority of our patients want to be there. They need their life to change.
So they've already taken a huge step before they even pick up that phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And so you're saying that you have 280 patients. Is that pretty much what it's been, or does it change much?
When I first became affiliated with, you know, started working at Brattleboro Habit OPCO in 2012, there were about 120 people. And now there's 280. So we've grown.
You've grown.
Yes, yes, yes.
Do you have any idea why that is? Is it people knowing more about it? Is the word on the street out there more?
I think the word on the street is out there. I think people know more about it, and I think there's more people are wanting to change. I think there's a huge problem with heroin in Brattleboro, in the surrounding communities. I mean, it's not just Brattleboro we get people from Keene, although they have a methadone clinic in Keene or in Swansea. A lot of folks choose to come to us.
Track record or reputation?
I think reputation.
Yeah.
They give us a try, and because people can't come in and just dose and go at Habit OPCO. They have to have the full range of services. They have to do counseling. And they're held accountable to do their counseling, because medication alone, most of the time, is not going to help people. They also have to do counseling to help them, what got them to this point, and what skills do they need to help them manage and navigate successfully back into a life that they want to be leading.
That's right. That's right. So there has to be support in many different ways.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
and that's what you folks are offering,
Yes.
in addition to coming in for daily doses or whatever it is that they need.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have a full range
Yes.
of services there.
Yes.
So you talk about people coming to you and taking that big first step. What's in the way of people getting help?
Oh, sometimes it's the stigma. Even in the addictive community, those that are addicted to heroin, they don't want to be shamed.
Yeah.
Because there's a big shame with being on medically assisted treatment. I should just be able to stop this. But what
they're saying to themselves.
Yeah, they're
yes,
saying to
right.
themselves, or family members
Yes.
are saying to them, you should just be able to stop. Why can't you just stop this? Opioids hijack the brain. And it takes a long time for the brain to start functioning as it should again, or as it has for the first time in their life. So the stigma that's associated with, I mean, we've had people come hundreds of miles to come to the clinic because they didn't want people in their own neighborhood to know that they were opioid dependent.
There's the anonymity that comes with traveling. Yeah.
Yep.
There is a very large percentage in the community that's not getting help that you folks are pretty aware of. Is that right?
Yep. And there's folks that I think might be on prescription medication, prescription opioids, that may be abusing their opiates, and they're, you know, still chugging along, you know, and they've turned to heroin, or they might not have reached bottom yet. I don't know, but I think it's a bigger problem than a lot of people want to realize, you know, and it's not just the homeless folks on the street corner asking for money. It's the people living in their comfortable homes that just haven't come to grips with that they have a serious substance use disorder.
Right, and a huge part of that is also prescription drugs.
Yes. Yep.
So it's not just that somebody starts doing heroin, you know,
Right.
or does, you know, the gateway drugs, you know, going up to heroin, but it's also prescription drugs, OxyContin, and all kinds of things that need to be answerable to some of these things, right?
I would have to say, you know, 9 out of 10 times that I've done any intake over the last, you know, 6 years, people inevitably would say that they started with prescription pain medication for some reason or another. You know, whether they were prescribed it because of a sports injury in high school, and they liked the way it made them feel, they were no longer shy, or whether, you know, they decided to try it in their, you know, it was in their parents' cabinet.
Right, right. But that's a big, and is that one of the reasons, do you think, why we're seeing such a huge spike in what we're calling opioid use and opioid crisis?
I think so.
Yeah. Also, people like our Governor Shumlin, when he was in office, declaring, you know, that there was a real emergency going on.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I think Governor Shumlin really opened things up, and I believe that was in 2014
I think
when
so.
he just opened up and started, you know, we need to do something about this crisis in Vermont. You know, we might be a little state, but it's a big crisis.
Yes.
It really opened up the gates for people to start coming in, and I think that's when we had a spike too.
Yeah.
In census as well, when the hub in Spoke Model came out.
Right, and you're calling yourself a hub. That indicates that you're giving a full, wide range of services and not just coming in for dosing.
Right.
And so, and you guys, just to make it clear to our audience too, you guys are a methadone clinic.
Yes,
and
we
the
are
retreat
is Suboxone.
Suboxone. One of the things that you do in your services, of course, you're in relationship with the police, other organizations, different services in town, so you've got a lot going on in terms of connection professionally.
Yes.
But also you mentioned uniform services, and I wonder if you could just mention that.
One of my internships was at the Brattleboro Retreat Uniform Services Program, and that, I couldn't say enough about that program. I saw a group of dedicated men and women who ran into tragedy when people were running out, and I just got a real respect.
Yes, and this is people in uniform, just to
in
clarify
uniform.
that. So police officers, EMT people,
firefighters, military personnel, corrections officers, 100% of those that I worked with in that capacity had trauma and substance use.
Oh, wow.
And they developed, some of them were in recovery, but when they got into when the trauma happened, they had a relapse, because relapse can be very much part of recovery.
Right.
People relapse from other diseases, so you know, addiction is another disease. So you know, they would come in and they would be so shameful that they had this relapse, but my gosh, they just maybe went into a family of 5
Right.
Yeah, and tragic, horrible things, or things from firefighters. I worked with firefighters that were at the Twin Towers, on 9/11, and that were in recovery, or that their alcoholism or their drug addiction got worse after the trauma. So.
Yeah, so that kind of work put you right on the front lines as
Yes,
well.
yes,
Yeah.
it did. Yes, it did. And that was a little bit more difficult for me to process, but I had a wonderful supervisor, intern supervisor, and I was able to process that with her.
Yeah.
So I didn't get too much vicarious trauma.
Yeah, vicarious trauma is the phrase, yeah.
Yes.
And this is all at the retreat.
Yes.
Yeah, we know about firemen, we know about all of the people in uniforms, but we know what they go through, but I think we don't realize the deep, deep effect that it has.
Exactly.
And what they take on in doing that.
Yeah, folks come to Habit OPCO every day to dose, and that's a huge commitment in and of itself. They come before work. A lot of folks work at 7 o'clock in the morning, so we open up at 6 a.m. And
you're there at 6 a.m.
Yes, I am there at 6 a.m. And some mornings, like this morning, I hit the ground running. But I'm there, our counselors are there, the nurses are there at 6 a.m. And folks are standing and waiting for their dose, and then they can get on with their day. They might have to go and see a counselor before they dose and do their counseling session. They might have to do a group. We do a early workers group once a month that meets from 6 to 7. So they have to do that group, and then they go and they dose. And a lot of the groups are process groups, CBT groups, which is cognitive behavior therapy, skills groups, some trauma groups. So they do that. And so I guess methadone clinics are habitually early, so they can help people. So they can get into the habit of working, so they get in the habit of doing something productive on a daily basis, folks that weren't living a productive lifestyle before.
And that in itself is a huge thing, is to have yourself in a schedule that you're following throughout the day, and this is part of your day.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's very healthy.
Yes, exactly. And we, eventually when people come in when they've been, illicit drug-free for like 90 days and their dose is stable and they're engaging with their counseling and everything like that, they can start qualifying for take-home medication. So they can get a bottle of take-home medication, and they can eventually work up to it. It takes a couple of years, but they can eventually work up to 27 take-home bottles. And they only have to come to the clinic once a month.
And what percentage of people get to that point?
Oh gosh, we don't have. I would say that we have maybe 20 people that meet that that are at that criteria.
That's success,
Yeah,
right?
it is success. Oh yeah, and you would never have thought it when you first saw the. I mean, I've followed people for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Some people, and you never would have thought when they walked in that door that they would someday be illicit free and a responsible person in society.
That must be amazing.
It is very amazing.
And
it's very rewarding, and I think that's what keeps me. That's what I know for myself. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps it new. That's what keeps it alive, is that hope. Yeah.
The hope. And the fact that your model is working.
Yes. Our model is working.
When people come into your clinic and they're getting methadone, you've got a very precise way of prescribing it. And,
yes. They don't just come in and get like, here's, like 50 milligrams of methadone at the... No, they have to titrate up, and our doctor at the clinic is very careful on titrating people up to a therapeutic dose. There's a 24-day induction period now, and so they get assessed, they get scored by the nursing staff. It's a very competent. Our nursing staff is awesome. Our nursing manager is awesome. And they get scored every day on how it's a controlled opiate opioid withdrawal scale. And they get scored based on the numbers that they score, and their dose is appropriate. So we don't have people nodding out, you know.
Right.
And if we did see somebody that was excessively tired, we would have them sit for a pre-dose assessment to make sure that they were safe to leave the clinic.
Yeah. You're really tracking people.
Oh yes, we are.
You're
we
tracking people.
Yes.
And these people are getting attention.
Yes.
Which I'm sure is a big part of this.
Oh
as
yeah.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads into to addiction itself, which I know that you're interested in.
Yes.
You know, the brain mechanism that goes into all
Yes.
of that, where it comes from.
Yeah.
So what in your experience, what are the prime things that come out in terms of how people get addicted?
Trauma. A lot of trauma history. Early childhood trauma. Even, you know, teenage trauma. I would have to say at least 80% of my caseload has a trauma background.
Wow.
And that's huge. Substance abuse and trauma, I mean, oftentimes you have a really hard time not finding one without the other. A lot of trauma survivors, and they've made it this far.
Right.
You know, to where they can get some help, and they're really working hard. I would have to say a lot of things is generational, familial, where a parent introduced them to a substance at a young age, whether it be alcohol, pot, you know, even cocaine. I'm talking before they were a teenager.
Right.
That happens a lot more than people would like to think.
Either consciously or unconsciously, I'm sure, you know, the family culture itself
Yes, family
would lend
culture,
itself
yes.
to, you know, either drugs or nicotine
Yes.
or all kinds of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. And a genetic piece, I think, is what genetic and generational.
Yeah. I have no doubt in my mind that there's that genetic predisposition. That's why we do, when people come in, we do a biopsychosocial. So we're looking at biology, psychology, and social, environmental factors play a really big role.
Yes.
in, I think, you know, all three. And some people, a good deal of people have all three.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's like, okay, no wonder
Yes.
they're sitting here right now.
With all this in mind, you know, your own personal experience, I think, plays into this bit too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it does. Again, I'm the youngest of 6 children. A little bit before my 20th birthday, my father hit his bottom. He went into treatment. He was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. And when my father passed away in 2009, he passed away with almost 30 years of sobriety.
Wow.
So there was that model. My oldest brother, he was also an alcoholic and a heroin addict. He died in 1999 of a heroin overdose. My brother he was an alcoholic. He stopped drinking. He went on to heroin a couple of years after he stopped drinking. He died in 2016 of liver cancer. He ended up getting hepatitis C from a needle. It didn't get treated. It went too far. I have another sister that a sister that passed away in 2015 as a direct result of her opioid and alcohol abuse. I have my oldest sister passed away of an overdose, and she was on medication for pain.
Wow.
And
that's wild, Barbara.
Right.
And I know that coming out of that too, you're very aware of breaking up the cycle.
Oh,
of
yes.
That kind of generational.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And myself, I'm in recovery. I've been sober from alcohol and marijuana for 22 years. I've never had an issue with any other illicit substances. I was active in AA. I've been active in AA. And just, I don't know. I love being sober. There's such a joy in being sober. And I don't disclose that to my patients that I work with, because only if it's going to benefit them.
Right.
I mean, personally, I'm showing that I'm a living example of what can happen to somebody who takes recovery seriously.
Yes.
But I'm not in this for my benefit. I'm in this for those that I serve benefit. So occasionally I'll throw myself under the bus, but not often.
Yeah, and it's just amazing, your optimism and your positive attitude about it all. It's just what shines through. It's so incredible. And all of this, I wonder, how do you process at the end of the day? How do you recuperate?
Oh, okay. Sometimes I just go home and I play foolish phone games on my phone, word games, and I have a really strong faith in God, and I pray. Sometimes I pray throughout the day, and just get my energy from God.
Wow. And that's a connection again.
That is.
That's a really strong connection that gets you through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I would hate to think of where I would be if I didn't have my faith.
What kind of services would you like to, what would you add to what you guys are already doing?
Oh gosh, I would love to see us get a dentist and have a volunteer dentist or whatever and offer dentistry. A lot of our folks might have dental issues because when you're using drugs, taking care of your dental health is not the first thing on your list.
Right.
And also I'd like to see a psychiatrist be able to do an evaluation and maybe give folks some medication for depression or something like that.
Right there on site. Yep.
Psychiatry is really hard to find in the town of Brattleboro or the surrounding areas. It's a huge problem, really big shortage. I would like to say, maybe even reproductive health in the setting, and maybe offer more range of like a DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, which gives people skills. It's a type of cognitive therapy that can give people skills that might have emotional dysregulation issues caused by, years of trauma and years of substance use. And oftentimes when people are still in substance use, they're still experiencing trauma because they kind of go hand in hand. My ideal would be a town that is accepting of all people that had substance use disorders. I mean, I love Brattleboro. It's an awesome town. And Brattleboro is so accepting of people from all walks of life. It's an awesome town. I love Brattleboro. I mean, I've adopted this as my town, nearly 20 years ago. So I would like everybody in Brattleboro to be able to say, you know what, you're doing a good job. You're going to the methadone clinic. You're no longer using illicit substances. You're taking care of your family. You're working. You have a quality of life.
Right.
Great job.
Great job. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my ideal would be. And then, of course, having a place where all these places could be under one roof.
Yeah.
And people are keeping track of it and not sending people. We have a lot of services in Brattleboro. But sometimes they have to go here, and then they have to go there.
Right.
And then I'd like to see it all under one roof, and just keep it simple.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
keep it simple.
Well, it's a great ideal, Barbara, and I think that you're working towards it.
Okay,
and
thank
it's wonderful to see that. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
It was my
yeah,
pleasure.
It was great to hear all of this.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks to all of you for tuning in today. This was a great show, and I think it's information that not only is helpful, but that we all really need to hear. So tune in again next week. We will be here with Here We Are.